All right, we got one more new release here. It's our second Best Picture nominee. We're speeding through the Oscar nominations. We're going to have all 8 of them done and reviewed by the time the Oscars are around. So the next one here is Minari. So I did some research on Minari.
Okay.
Not the film, but, the plant.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So apparently it tastes bitter. And because it grows so fast, it must be carefully monitored so it doesn't become invasive.
Interesting.
It does a lot better in the summer than it does in the winter, as if that's a fun fact and not just basic science. And despite its popularity, it's apparently very difficult to find in nurseries.
Interesting.
But director Lee Isaac Chung, who based this film off of his childhood experiences, also called Minari, oh my gosh, a poetic plant. And that's because it will grow very strongly in its second season after it's died and come back. I don't think I've ever seen a plant epitomize a film before, except maybe like a Venus flytrap and The Predator or anything, right? But clearly a lot more thought has gone into that analogy to Minari's analogy than mine. So the story follows Jacob and Monica Yi, an immigrant Korean couple who moved from California to Arkansas in the spirit of new beginnings. They've worked as chicken sexers as long as they've been in America, continuing in Arkansas to pay the bills while Jacob works on getting a Korean produce farm up and running. Their move starts out on rough footing, however. The house is hardly glamorous, and the financial burden of starting a farm may have been a little bit miscalculated on Jacob's part. And Monica is incredibly anxious about everything that is happening around here. She's feeling isolation from any sort of Korean American community, especially the lack of a Korean church is something that is affecting her. And also, she's worried about what life will look like here for her kids. Anne and David. David specifically adds to her worries with a severe heart condition that makes even simple stress as risky as running with scissors. And to put some ease on their marriage and add perhaps a bit more stability in the house, Monica's mother, Sunya, comes to stay with them. And I know this is when the film really livened up for you, Eric.
It was like already like very intriguing, but oh my god, I love Sunya.
Yes.
I love Yuh-jung. She is a delight.
To say the least.
Yeah.
To say the least. And she is, even though Stephen Yeun is getting Oscar buzz, and I think he was nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah, he's Best Actor. He's up there.
She is, I think, the front runner for Best Supporting Actress.
I would agree.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say we both really, really enjoyed this film, with excellent performances all around.
Yeah. Even from the kids.
Yes, especially from the kids. And the film definitely livened up for me when Sunya came in. She is quite the personality.
Yeah.
She has no problem saying what she thinks. She curses.
She loves Mountain Dew, mountain water.
Yeah, mountain water. No, they play such tricks on her. It's absolutely hilarious. And, but they really start to blossom into like a community. It becomes like its own community, a family clan with an addition that comes with challenges, but ultimately, I don't know, adapts.
Yeah,
I guess
it's funny because like I think you and I, we didn't really know that much going into this movie, other than like it was a massive success and people were really talking about it. We realized it was an A24 movie, which we're like, okay, like it'll probably be good. I think off the bat, like knowing just a little bit of the plot, which is this Korean family. I would say, are you first generation immigrants to America?
Yes, I believe the two of them moved.
Yeah, and have their kids there.
Have kids here.
First generation immigrants moving to Arkansas to start a farm. My brain immediately went to racism. I was like, oh god, it's gonna be a racism movie. But that's not at all what it is. It's pretty much just a slice of life movie. It really is. It really feels like Lee Isaac Chung just kind of telling a story about his childhood. I don't know if let's assume that he represents David represents the director himself growing up. But like you really get a sense that just this story felt lived in, like he really experienced this.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned. I definitely also assumed that there was going to be like an unhappy ending, and it's just a testament to the kind of stories that
we see
day, not only in Hollywood but also in real life. I don't think it was a ridiculous assumption to make.
No,
the entire time I was convinced there's this evangelical Christian who comes to work on the farm who was a Korean war veteran.
Yeah,
and I was just
it's
like,
the 80s. It's the Reagan era. We're like, oh no.
Yeah, I was convinced pretty much like the entire movie that this guy was just going to go ballistic and kill everybody.
And then we're like, oh no, he's actually all right. He's crazy, but like he's all right.
He's definitely crazy. This man speaks in tongues, he mumbles, he just impromptu exorcisms.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very, he's a cool cat and kitten.
Quite a character.
Yeah, quite a character indeed. But, that doesn't mean racism does not play a part in this movie, because it does. And it's interesting, but I think it's a different side of racism that we don't really talk about a lot.
The more subtle side.
Yeah, I think the people in this community, especially in the Christian community, the family eventually decides to go to church just because Monica is feeling especially lonely. We're witnessing people trying to learn how to interact with one another.
Yeah.
And they're definitely rough around the edges. There's one kid who insults David pretty bad.
Immediately, he's just like, "Why's your face so flat?"
Yeah,
like, good lord.
Yeah, not great. People, would you describe that as a microaggression? That just sounds aggressive, personally. But they eventually strike up a friendship. Like, literally, it's so weird because like that comment happens, and then one shot here, and then the next shot is David asking, "Hey, can I sleep over at his house?"
Right.
It's just like, oh, okay, whatever. But I mean, like, I think that is interesting because the community that's built here, the community that they have with outsiders in general, is built around the church. And I think we think of the church as kind of a dividing force in our, in our politics or just in our social interactions. So that was kind of an interesting thing to see.
Yeah, I didn't realize the importance. I'm black, he's white. Like I didn't know the importance of Christianity in Asian culture. Especially Korean culture. But like then I kind of thought back and I was like, oh my god, there are a lot of Christian Korean churches here in Maryland. Like I've seen a lot of them. So bringing that like element to the movie really enlightened me a bit and made me think a lot more.
Yeah, and faith is definitely a big part of this film. And not just in like a religious sense, but also like in a hopeful sense.
Yeah, it's not like a what is it? Pure Flix movie. Like it's not trying to beat you over the head with it, trying to say a message. It's just telling its story. It's just being truthful to this family and what they're into. Yeah,
absolutely. And that hope also extends into the financial endeavors. This farm, why am I blanking on his name? Jacob, my twin brother's name. You would think I would remember that, but Jacob goes into this sort of like an American dream, right? He has this plan. They're gonna take everything from California, this assumingly comfortable life, start new in Arkansas, work for 3 years, retire from all other sources of income, and maintain this farm, right?
Yeah.
And what's so interesting is that hope is sort of countered by this realism about the fading security of farming in America. This was once America's most prosperous professions, and it was also among its most accessible. America, if it has anything, it has a lot of dirt and a lot of land.
Very true.
But, that's the kind of fiscal promise and almost guarantee that has driven a lot of people into this country. And I think that was also really interesting to examine. You have the optimist perspective through Jacob, and then on the other hand you have Monica, who's like, I feel like this is going to fail. And like something that is so great about her performance, Han's performance, is you can see in her face like the years of doubt that she's been like covering, and that's just been boiling, you know, like she believes, she has faith in him, you know, but I guess there are these insecurities and these anxieties that have long been lingering.
I was gonna say that like Steven Yeun and Yuh-jung have been like getting the most praise lately. But I think that she's completely, or Han Ye-ri is like definitely being underlooked, or maybe overlooked. I don't know. Yeah, overlooked. Yeah, she's fantastic in this movie.
She's certainly.
I would argue that like she might even have a better performance than Steven. I think Sun Ya has the best performance in this entire movie.
Agreed.
But like, there's a moment where Monica blows up on him, and it's heartbreaking. And like, just like she doesn't even, once again, like not overacting. Like her face is, for the most part, fairly stoic, but it feels like she's holding back so much emotion. Like she wants to rage out, but of course her kids are like right off to the side, and they're in the back of a store that they just had some success in, and it just hurts. It hurts to see this entire scene go down, this performance go down, this character really want to break down, this relationship breaking down. Like, she's fantastic.
Does it hurt even more as a married man?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, yeah, this is the other thing. I mentioned this to Luke before, but like their struggles in their marriage, I felt it, because like I've seen this, I've gone through it, I've seen the back and forth, not even just with me, but just like even like with my parents or just like my friends, like couples that had to deal with their issues of like am I spending too much, or am I focusing too much time on like my work or on this one thing and neglecting my family or just things that are obviously important to me just because I need this one thing to succeed. I've been there. I've seen people go there, and it feels real. And I think that's a very real topic that isn't often brought up in movies like this. And I was very glad to see it.
Yeah, it was very good. And you know, that stressor, that stressful dynamic is countered by that of Daniel and grandmother.
Yeah,
who have this delightful bond and this delightful arc.
Yeah.
But you know, that's not left in its purity either. You know, there are scenes where Daniel, you know, a young kid is such a fragile thing. They're smart enough to understand that something is happening, but not understand why it's happening. Or it's very easy to deflect based on the observational changes around them. So grandma comes into the house, parents are fighting. Grandma, it's your fault. I think there's one scene where he tells her that when she's sleeping, and I'm like, Daniel, no.
I know.
And that was after he made so much progress because, and this is another thing, the two of them had never met.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is, I guess they had not gone to Korea since Daniel was born. He's pretty young in this movie. What, 7?
I think 7.
Right? Yeah. I think I just said he was 7. Whoops. But it's just like they've spent all of this time building a connection, and grandma really works hard to build this connection and establish this connection. And
she's like, you will like me.
But not in a forceful way.
No,
she's just like, I'm
way.
going to be the coolest grandmother ever, and I'm going to force you to like me.
Absolutely.
But then it all comes crashing down in one night, and then, you know, something. Okay, never mind. We're stepping in spoiler territory.
Something happens.
Let's just say the word something.
Yeah, something.
But it's a really positive arc between them. You know, grandma sees something in Daniel that nobody else sees, and that's strength. You know, Daniel is very much limited by the fact that he, you know, they say he can't even run, right? So he has this like little fast walk, this little hybrid between sprinting and walking that, you know, he thinks is effective, I guess. That was a weird way to say that.
I mean, but like, that's.
But it's the most he can do.
Yeah.
You know, and grandma starts pushing him a little bit. She sees the strain. She's like, you know, your cousin or whatever, he was way weaker at his age than David is. And it's just, so you have this tension in the parent character, and then, I don't know, sort of a whole personal
personal
rising.
struggle. Yeah, rising.
A rising with Grandma and David, which I think is interesting because that's what they brought Grandma there to do.
Yeah.
You know,
to make things a little bit easier.
You have anything else on this movie?
No. I mean, I'll jump right into my final thoughts. I think this is a great slice of life movie that really conveys the hardships of simply trying to succeed in America through the eyes of a Korean family. The family dynamic is what really works the best in this movie because it feels so real. The performances are great and very memorable. I definitely think that Miss Yuh-jung will absolutely be getting the gold for Best Supporting. I at least hope so, because she's fantastic in this movie. And I think, I mean, at this point, I'm very excited to see what Lee Isaac-chung does next. This movie's great. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5.
And so for me, Minari is a passionate and personal film with fantastic performances, heart, and humor. 3 very important things. This is Chun's most inspired film to date, falling in line with the sentiment I expressed earlier that the best stories are the ones that come from truth. And while it may not preserve the American dream per se, it highlights one American dream for decency in all people. I'm going to give it 4.5 out of 5 stars.
Oh,
I really like this movie.